Stitching Runner and welcome to my channel. I want to say a big hello and welcome to all new and returning viewers, and if by chance you've stumbled across this channel and you're wondering what on earth's going on here, this channel is all about cross-stitching with a little bit of life stuff thrown in, and this particular episode and many of the episodes for the month of October at least are going to be just a little bit different, where I'm trying something out to help keep me motivated at least with cross-stitching and keeping my content here for everyone interesting. So what I'm doing for the month of October as a bit of a trial run is the Spooky Spring stitching, and I'm using a random wheel spin app on my phone. So this is the app, and with the wheel that I'll show you in closer detail soon, I've entered in some projects that are very much works in progress that I want to see some more progress on. And I've also included some projects that I've not started yet, so they're just charts. And with the settings that I've put into the app, it will mean that some projects may get selected more than once, and sometimes it might mean that they'll be worked on in consecutive days. Because as part of this challenge that I'm doing for myself at least and sharing with you how things go, I am going to be working on a different project per day, and I'm not putting any time pressures or stitching number of stitches pressures in any way, shape, or form. It's just a case of when I've got the time, I'll sit down and work on that project, and that timing may end up being, especially during the working days, just a few hours in the afternoon when I've been able to come home, chill out, relax, and especially after dinner time. So it'll be interesting to see how things go for that. And especially for this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you the first 7 days of the stitching challenge. And today is day 8 of the challenge, so I'll be able to spin the wheel and show you what project I'll be working on for hopefully a good chunk of the day. So let's get into the actual wheel and what projects I've got selected for it. So I've called the wheel Spooky Stitching, and this is the wheel. So the projects that I have there are very much a variety of spooky and spring based. So we've got the likes of Dewdrop Daisy, which is a hot cross stitching design, and we've got the Love Ocean, which is a Tilton Crafts project that I've only just started stitching on as part of this spinning the wheel. Then I've also got the likes of a Heaven and Earth design called Shrooms, or I've got another hot cross stitching design, which is I Count My Lucky Stars. And then we've also got again, another Heaven and Earth design called His Master's Voice Mini. And you can see some of the other projects that I've got listed up there on the wheel as well. And it's been really cool and fun so far, where I've loved the randomness of not knowing what project I'm going to work on for that afternoon or that day. So let's get into it and let's see how things have gone over the last 7 days. On the 1st of October, the random picker generator app, it selected for me Dewdrop Daisy, and the wonderful thing of the 1st of October is that it was a public holiday here in Australia, which enabled me to spend a bit more time than I have on some of the other projects during the last 7 days. And it meant that I was able to get over 400 stitches done on Dewdrop Daisy. So this is what Dewdrop Daisy will look like when it's done. It is one of my own designs, hot cross stitching, and it's a chart that's available for purchase, whether it be digital download or a physical chart purchase like this one right here, available on my Etsy store called Hot Cross Stitching, and also my own website by the same name. So Hot Cross Stitching and Dewdrop Daisy. So I've not done any ironing, but this is, I guess, where I'm at. And me being a bit of a numpty, so to speak, I forgot to take before and after pictures, but I very quickly learned my lesson. And to help with showing progress for this particular challenge, I did want to start showing progress pictures. So we'll slowly see them being inserted. But it meant that with this particular project, the extra 400 stitches in it has enabled me to increase the percentage of completion from the 74.7 something percent up to 75%, or perhaps, yeah, 75.40%. So that, I think, is a pretty awesome thing. On the 2nd of October, the random wheel picker selected for me the Spring in Stars Hollow by the Black Needlework Society. And it was a chart that you've potentially heard me talk a bit about through the AFL Stitching Challenge and other Flosstube updates. And so hopefully you've seen some of the stitching progress that I've made on it. But if not, you'll see some progress pictures for this and the chart that this particular project is connected to. And the sad thing is that I was only able to spend a couple of hours on the project compared with nearly all day. And that's, again, just part of life. I had to return to work. Unfortunately, it was just a regular return to work day, and it worked out okay though. It was still really good to be able to get some progress done on it, and you'll see some progress pictures up on the screen. But if they're appearing not long enough, this is where I ended up with. So I've now started at near the top where we'll see a bit of the garden and the yellow house of Lorelei and Rory Gilmore, and that will be really cool. It's a project that is nice and fun, and the really good thing with this is that by taking progress pictures of this, I don't feel the added pressure to note down some of the statistics for the project in terms of how many stitches that I've done. I just know that it was just a couple of hours that I got to spend, and it's just fun, enjoying, relaxing at the end of the day. The 3rd of October saw me spin the Summer in Stars Hollow, and is a chart by the Black Needle Society as well. And the slight difference with this particular chart is that it's a digital download that I chose to purchase as part of the Summer in Stars Hollow Stitching Retreat that has also been run by the Black Needle Society. So unfortunately, I don't have a special cover page to share with you, but I do know that if you start doing some searches on Instagram, that you'll hopefully see some of the amazing work and stitching that a lot of the attendees have done. So you'll hopefully see what the full picture will look like when it's done. And you'll also see as part of a snippet that I've included in this update, my initial progress of Summer in Stars Hollow before I actually sat down on the 3rd of October in the evening after work to get some stitching done. And the challenge that I've also set myself unintentionally with this particular project is that the fabric. I do have enough fabric to stitch the project. However, you'll see in the progress of this stitching, I will have a very tight amount of margin on the right hand side, unfortunately, my own markup, but by the same token, it means that I get to do a bit of personalizing, so to speak. So, also, the extra challenge for myself with this project is that I had to do a bit of frogging as part of the stitching I was doing on the evening of the 3rd of October. And you'll also notice that a little bit with the progress after pick. The good thing though with the Summer in Stars Hollow is that I love the vibrant colours that are in this one. And even though it was just a couple of hours of stitching, it is a really nice, easy stitch, especially when I haven't needed to do any frogging, but you'll see what I mean. On the fourth day of this spooky spring stitching, I really want to say on the fourth day of Christmas, because as this episode is coming about, I feel like I am doing the 12 days of Christmas Carol wording, and it is really hard to not use that wording. That said, on the fourth day of this spooky spring stitching, I spent some time on a heaven and earth design called The Inner Works of Life, and it's a chart that I have nicknamed the Tree of Life because it is that phrasing of as above, so below, and it is a phrasing that I love hearing through other YouTube channels that I have an interest in. Beside that, this is all about the stitching. And my challenge for getting into spending just a couple of hours on this project in the light colours and also figuring out which way is up, in the sense that this project, I don't normally do this for a lot of my full coverage projects. I've started in the centre, and I know I should probably just lightly draw an up arrow or some kind of directional arrow to show which way is up, so that way in this early stage of stitching I'll be able to figure out which way is up and get a bit more time doing the stitching rather than the time spent on figuring out which way I'm doing the stitches. So the really nice thing about this project is that once I got into the groove of it, it felt like I was almost flying through the stitches, so to speak. So as light as the colours are, I hope that with this after pick, you'll be able to see the progress that I've been able to do compared to the before picture. On the fifth day of spooky spring stitching, I couldn't help but laugh. Summer in Stars Hollow again. So this helped to get a lot more stitching done, and I chose to work on just a slightly different section of the project where I knew that I wouldn't need to do any frogging. It definitely played some tricks on my eyes. It got me being conscious and aware of what I was stitching and where I was stitching it. So that was a good thing. It was mindful stitching compared with mindless. I don't think we ever really do mindless stitching unless it is these huge, big blocks of solid colour where we can just go into that autopilot of stitching. So the Summer in Stars Hollow stitching saw me stitch roughly 2 hours, maybe a little less, of the roof of the house. Or is it the roof of the Dragonfly Inn? I'm going by memory at the moment as I'm speaking here. So the good thing though is that you'll see a difference. And it was nice to get a little bit of work done on it. On the sixth day of the spooky stitching challenge, I got to work from home, which meant that I got to spin the wheel just a little bit earlier than normal, and it also meant that when I started doing some work on I Count My Lucky Stars, which came up for the 6th of October, I got to do a little bit of stitching during my lunch break, and I got to spend a few more hours than felt like normal, or compared with other days, compared with the earlier days. I got to spend a few more extra hours because it was a Friday. And so I could allow myself to stay up just a little bit later to get a little bit more stitching done. And I am excited about this project because I have the letter Y as part of the word my that needs to get done. And then I also have the letters for the word life. And then I finished doing the stitching for the quote, I count my lucky stars every day that you are in my life. And once those lettering or that quote has been finished stitching, when I get my words right, I then have the fun of stitching the border. And sorry, that will be interesting. That will be interesting because I have so many thoughts and ideas of how it can work, what colours I want to use. It is then the execution of doing it. So it is a matter of watching this space to seeing the progress on that and seeing how many more times I Count My Lucky Stars comes up in the spins, not only for the month of October, but future months as I navigate my world of what future stitching challenges I can set for myself and whether anyone here wants to join me. On the 7th day of this challenge, yesterday, I got to do a new start, and it was exciting and weird and really cool because it's a project that I have been eyeing off in my collection for quite a while now because it's a chart that I have in Pattern Keeper, and I see it nearly every day when I go into the app for other projects that I'm working on. And it is a project by Tilton Crafts, and it has been cool to work on so far. And the joy of yesterday is that it was a Saturday, and I didn't have to travel. I didn't have to travel between Wollongong and Canberra or anywhere in between, and it's nice, especially with the last few weeks and the way life has been. It has been nice to just have one of those sorts of days where I still got to be active, I still got to do the things I needed to do, but I also got to spend quite a few hours on this project. And I 500 stitches. That was roughly the amount, maybe a bit over 500 is the amount that I was able to put into this project. And I was having flashbacks to stitching on the Inner Works of Life, the Tree of Life project by Heaven and Earth Designs, because I'm stitching this on 25 count fabric. It's a blue fabric, so it's the same fabric that I used for the 12 Days of Christmas project. And the difference is that I'm stitching Love Ocean as 1/1, and you'll hopefully see the close-up that I've done of the after pic to show the progress that I made on Love Ocean. And I'm finding it to be a struggle at the moment, and it could be that my eyes were getting a bit tired towards the end of the day as well, and I was struggling to properly see where my stitches were because I was using light coloured thread. So I'm using all of the called for colours, D and C, and some of them they were almost blending in with the fabric. And I chose that fabric partly because it's got a lightish blue colour to it. So if through my style of stitching any fabric did inadvertently show through, that it might add to the project. That said, there's going to be a really good block of colour that I'm going to be starting on at some point, and that is going to help me just fly through that stitching and get really good blocks done and get a good high count of stitching up until I get to that center where we see all these really beautiful, beautiful colors that make up Love Ocean. So I guess again, it's a case of watch the space, and I look forward to including Love Ocean in some summer stitching that I'll be doing hopefully after December. So we have a break in our regularly scheduled programming for this particular episode because we are now up to the 8th of October. I've not spun the wheel, but just before I do spin the wheel to find out what I'm going to be stitching for Sunday, the 8th of October, I want to share with you a mostly fully finished project that I got to work on yesterday. So this is where a little bit of life stuff is going to happen, but it's stitching related life stuff. So not this afternoon, who knows what's going to happen this afternoon, but yesterday, my boyfriend and I got to go out to lunch, and we went and ate at a place that was probably a really short 5-minute walk away from Spotlight. And it meant that I was able to take with me some stitching, the Dictionary of Dogs project. I finally got it framed up. But let me tell you, trying to find the right sized frame for this particular project was a pain in the neck, partly because it isn't a normal sized project in the sense that I thought, okay, 30 by 30, so 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, or the 12-inch by 12-inch. That should fit, that should be fine. To some extent, it did. And the frames that were available to me at the time, there were a couple of options that could have worked, but it was also meaning that the options that were available were these really big frames with a lot of matting around it. And I wasn't fully attached to the project to think that it needed such an elaborate frame in terms of elaborate in size and elaborate with the amount of matting that could have gone around it. If it was a project of if it was a hot cross stitching project, for example, like Dewdrop Daisy, or if it was black and white rolled up daisy, or some of my other projects that you are seeing the progress on, that I could justify having like a big frame and having the matting around it just to really go, oh, how awesome is this? So I'm going to insert some pictures that you'll start to see of the line of thinking that I had for this project in terms of the options of how I could finish it, because the exciting thing and the really good thing is that I've got a lot of dog themed prints, quilting fabric, and all the rest. So that helped a bit. And it also was a slight hindrance in the sense that the paw prints and such that I wanted to use was just going to be too busy and too much of a clash between the actual project and the fabric. So with the pictures, you'll see my line of thinking of what could have worked, what didn't, to result in the final product. So I'll just grab the project. So here it is. This is a Dictionary of Dogs. It is a Buffy Threads kit that I had purchased what feels like many moons ago as part of a craft fair that had been in Canberra that I'd gone to ages ago. So you might have seen just previously some of the pictures of my line of thinking and some of the details to do with this frame, but I can't probably call it a frame because when I was in Spotlight and I wasn't happy with finding, or I wasn't happy with the options that I had for frames, I went down and to another section of Spotlight and thought, okay, hang on, canvases, painting. Like they've got some options there. There might be something I can pick up. So this is actually, I guess, the way that we normally should see this particular, so wooden canvas, and maybe for folk art or other types of painting that I'm not aware of. This um, is, I guess, the way that it appeared to me on the shelf. And then I thought, I had a look at the back and going, this is perfect. This the measurements for this is 16-inch by 16-inch, and it is perfect to me. And it has given me the right measurements that I feel that I needed to help the frame for this. And this, the MDF or whatever other type of wood, it's all sanded down because it's already pre-sanded. I've not needed to do anything with it. It doesn't have, as we can see, any things on the back to enable any kind of wall hanging. That said, I know that I can get some special sticky stuff to go on the back of the wood that can enable just a really flat hanging on the wall. So we've got some options there. I am contemplating the the color of this frame, in the sense that I could get some paint, some black paint, and just paint it black to help really get this Dictionary of Dogs project to really pop out. I'm also noting that just a little bit of the frame of the fabric there, that was just part of when I trimmed the actual project. It frayed just a little bit. So I do have some ribbon back in Canberra that has paw prints on it that I could put around just the edge. I could trim just these frayed little bits. And the glue that I used, I actually was surprised that I used so much of it. It's E6000. So this was the little bit of glue because I didn't want to get a heap of glue. And I had to be aware and mindful that I was going to be sticking fabric to fabric and then fabric to wood. So I needed a glue that was going to be versatile in that sense. And it's really strong. I'm actually really happy with how it's turned out. And this will definitely be heading down to Canberra, and it'll float around the house a bit until I figure out where it's going to go. And I'm just really happy with how it's turned out. And now let's get back to our spooky spring stitching. Now for the moment that I've at least been hanging out for. Day 8 of the spooky stitching challenge, spooky spring stitching challenge even. What on earth am I going to be stitching today? So here we have the so let's see if I can get myself coordinated to do this. Yeah, I'm actually speaking. Okay, so I'm excited because I'm stitching on a project called Shrooms. It's a new project and it's a spooky one. It is spooky and I'm excited about it because it is spooky. Finally, we're getting into some spooky stitching, and I'm excited because it is a project that I haven't even shown or shared with anyone in terms of cover pages or anything like that. So this is why I've made sure that I've got my special tablet with me so I can actually show you the project that I'm going to be starting. And I'm excited. Sorry, croaky throat from getting excited. So this is a heaven and earth design, and I'm just trying to get the rotating thing to happen. And it's based on artwork by John Shannon, and this is Shrooms. And it has that sort of spookiness, creepiness thing about it. And I'm just going to sort of zoom in just a little bit on it. And I'm just sort of noticing that because I haven't properly looked at this project. I just love the colours in it and all the rest. The faces. The faces. So I just needed to get a quick bit of water. My throat was too much. So it's the faces that are on these shrooms that are just kind of cool. And I love the light that looks like it's coming out of some of the flowers here that almost make it seem like that they're lamps in the garden at night. And the now that because this is a new start for me, I now have the joy, the anxiety, not quite anxiety, but a little bit of the stress of figuring out what fabric to use and some of the fun that goes with it of making sure that this time I have enough fabric for the project and enough of a fabric border to go around it. And I will be making sure that I use a fabric calculator on this one as well. So while I was getting a drink of water, I was going through my stash of fabric a little bit to try and figure this one out in terms of what fabric I wanted to use, especially based on some of the chats I've had with you all about fabric and some of the challenges that I've been experiencing with some of my projects, and especially with two of mine during this episode, the Inner Works of Life and the other one. I've had a mental blank. Two of the projects anyway, Love Ocean, where I've been stitching on light fabric and using light colours, light threads, and just struggling to properly see what's going on. It could also be the fact that I'm just getting a little bit older and my eyes are starting to feel a bit tired. I know the day will eventually come where I will need glasses for my stitching. For me, I accept that and I look forward to it, to embrace it, because it is going to be a part of life. As long as I can continue to stitch, bring it on. Let's get back to figuring out this fabric. So in front of me, I've got off camera some options. And my first thought was, okay, dark project, dark fabric, it's got lots of black. Let's see how we go. So in my stash, I've got this 25 count Lugana. The project does call for 25 count fabric and to stitch it 1/1. So I've got this from the Victoria House needlecraft store, and this is where, because I'm going to be stitching like almost at least 3 pages across, perhaps, worth of black, it has me wondering if I even bother doing the black stitching. It will make a difference, it will help, but whether I do temp stitching initially to see how it looks, and then as I get into the colours for the shrooms, do full cross, I'll have to experiment a little bit on that one if I do choose to go with this black fabric, because I'm also contemplating using this fabric for another project when autumn arrives in Australia. So if I don't do the shrooms on this, the next thought is to do the easy grid fabric. I've got a heap of this. So if I did stitch shrooms on this, the challenge though is stitching 2/1, because that's what I'm doing with his master's voice, and I'm finding that I'm getting better coverage of doing 2 strands of DMC over 1 fabric square with this. And hey, it'll be easy enough because I'm doing that with his master's voice, that it should be no struggle to hear. And with it being with the easy grid as well, it'll be a lot easier for me to be sure that I've got the right amount of fabric with a bit of border around it as well to help with framing and all that fun stuff. And it got me thinking, okay, well, I also have some other fun fabric in terms of slightly different coloured fabric. This one may not be quite the right size, but this is 28 count Joberlin, and I guess this, I think, probably would work for more of a spoopy, spoopy. That I think was the word, SPOOPY or IE. That was probably the word that I was trying to think of earlier in this episode. So I think this might actually be better for like one of these other fun kind of charts that I don't have in my do not have in my collection yet, but I could eventually get. So this being there's this really nice orange color, I think could work really well to have some purples, some greens, some black on it. That sort of Halloween color wheel could be really awesome. So again, this is where my creative juices can start kicking in to try and figure out what sort of chart could or project could be used for this. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. And the last bit of fabric that has me sort of contemplating is this other fabric that I've got. So this is again pre-gridded fabric, 20 by 20, so 200 stitches per square. I'm using some of this fabric for the Blue Mountains Walking Trail project that some of you may have seen in earlier episodes. So this I've cut some of the fabric up for a project that I've very briefly started stitching and potentially abandoned because I wasn't too sure how it was going to work. Anyway, a bit of that rambling, but it's something that I know the shrooms could fit on as well. It might work with doing just 1/1. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see on that one. But I'm sort of leaning a bit towards the easy grid fabric, the 10 by 10 grid, to do the shrooms, and then do the 2/1 because I've got tons of that fabric. It'll be fine. It'll mean that for once I'll be nice to myself, and it'll mean that stitching will be easy to see. And I think the only challenge might be some of the lighter colours that we see when I get this to wake up again. So I think that the challenge that I would have is the shrooms in terms of the lighter colours that we see for them. That's probably where I'm going to have some challenge with the easy grid, and that's where I'd be wishing that I started stitching on the dark fabric. So I'll have to wait and see how that one goes. So either way, I'm looking forward to seeing progress on that one, and with it being a, a Sunday, the 8th of October, I'll have most of today to get some things done, do some stitching, and show you some progress in another week or so. Catch you later.